got a chance to see Dune Part 2. Let's find out my thoughts right now. Was it epic? Let's do it. Alright, thank you so much for coming back to the channel. If it's your first time, welcome, and spending time with me with my tirades about movies and television shows and comic books and board games and all that kind of fun stuff. So we're going to jump into Dune 2, but before we do, I am your host, Frank Zanka, an award-winning screenwriter, novelist, and comic book writer. So I look at movies from a filmmaking point of view. Again, thank you for clicking here and spending time with me. If you'd like to see anything I've written, of course, I have some stuff on Amazon, but also you're in luck because I am doing a late pledge for Lords of L.A., which is my vampire mob set in 1950s Hollywood. The link for the Fund My Comic site is in the description below. If you can jump in there and give something, that would be great. So let's talk about Dune 2. So the first one, of course, I saw the one back in the 80s with Sting, and there are some things I like about that. Of course, the Sean Young was in that from Virginia Madsen. It was great to see them, so young. I have worked with Sean Young before as well. I have not worked with Virginia Madsen. But, so I did like Sting in the role of Fade at that time. And, and the fat guy was pretty disgusting in that one. But again, it was, more of a lower budget film, and the effects didn't nearly exist back then. And, they tried to stick a whole lot into one little, 2-hour period of time. Or I think it was like 2.5 hours. So, with this one, we have Denise, how do you say it in French, I guess? Dennis? It's Dennis, but, I say it in French. Villeneuve. And as far as his past is concerned, there are a lot of people that get really, and I hate to sound crude, but really big hard-ons for his stuff. So I am not one of those people. I thought the first part of Dune was pretty boring. I was not really as much a fan as everybody else that was pretty much creaming their pants for this. Blade Runner 2049, I hated. I know a lot of people really love that movie. I hated it. Arrival, I hated. So, there's a lot of things that I'm just not a fan of this guy's work. Prisoners, I thought was good. And I think there was something else that I liked of his. But there, for the most part, Sicario. I like Sicario. So I'm a 50-50 guy with this guy. I have not, drank the Kool-Aid with this, but I know there's a lot of people that have. So the cast in here is really good. He's got some really top-notch actors in this. And, I know the first one was a big setup. So, of course, this one I was hoping would not have, that kind of downtime of setup, and it was just going to be a lot of action, which it was. So the setup did pay off in here. You can tell that the movie was longer and that they cut stuff out because it was so obvious that pieces were missing. And it's like, all of a sudden I was just like, what? They sent him out to the desert to be a survival course, and all of a sudden she popped there, and then all of a sudden the scene was over. That was it. He never had his survival. No, nothing. It was just gone. And so you could tell something was cut out there for sure. So I'm really not going to do any spoilers, but if you're a fan of Dune, obviously there is no such thing as spoilers with this. The only one that really had anything funny lines, and it was his comedic timing, was Javier Bardem. He was the only one that had any kind of levity, and it was more based on the fact that he was a faith zealot in this case, and overly so. And I think that's where the comedy came from for him. But everything else was very, very straight drama. I thought that Timothée Chalamet did. I mean, that guy's a talent, man. That guy is a talent. After seeing him in Wonka, and then seeing him again play this role, but even a stronger version of the last role, I was pleasantly surprised because that was one thing. I forgot who played the original one. He was a big name at the time, but I thought that Timothée Chalamet's performance he just beat him hands down. And Sean Young had a very small role in the original Dune as compared to Zendaya's character, which is, I would say, just as big as Timothée Chalamet's. I mean, she had just as big a role as him, and she pushed him along, but at the same time, we have this division going on between them, which is very, very interesting, and it's almost because the division is by his own making. It's something that he has to do. Now, Florence Pugh is also in this, but tiny role. I think she only took this purely because it was such a big movie and she probably wanted to work with the director. Otherwise, there was really no reason for her to be in it because she's a big enough star right now. She doesn't have to take tiny roles, and I would say this was tiny. Christopher Walken's role is also tiny. And even Austin Butler, he has a small part, but the part itself is very important. So I can see him taking this role. But I don't like the voice he chose, and I really like Sting better. I mean, he was able to play the crazy better than Austin is. I don't think Austin played crazy here. I think that he just played sadistic. I think that's what more it was, and we don't really get too much into his character. So when the final battle happens, there isn't that much of a lead up. And I think that's just the book in general because the original one didn't have a very big lead up either. Sting's role wasn't that big either. It was more, here's the villain. He looks crazy, and we'd have no idea what he's going to do. And then we had like a battle scene with him, like a gladiatorial, and they did it completely in black and white, and I have no idea why. It was obviously some kind of an art themed piece, and I have no idea why that scene was black and white. Purely because I guess he was just playing with it. I don't know. Rebecca Ferguson does a good job, but a lot of her part is like a quiet performance. So she has a lot going on, but doesn't say a lot. And she's the one pushing the story along just as much as Paul Atreides is. So, yeah, there's a lot going on in the film, but it is a big battle film for the most part. Bautista also has a smaller role. Josh Brolin doesn't even show up until much later in the film, but he's good in it. And Léa Seydoux, the one from James Bond, tiny role. I mean, she has 2 scenes, and that's it. Maybe 3 scenes, and that's it. She's in, and the scenes are all back to back. So she's maybe in like 2.5 minutes of the whole thing. And I have no idea what they're going to do. I assume they're going to probably do a part 3 because there's a lot of setup here that's not paid off. And so it was a good film. I know a lot of people are going to say it's the best thing in the world and it's great and all this stuff. The special effects are good. They leaned very, very heavily into the Muslim religion. All of the whole thing, and that's not how the one in the 80s was. It's obviously, they see him as a religious figure, as their savior, but in the 80s they didn't go heavily into the Muslim religion, where here I think it was almost, mirror image of the Muslim religion. So that's neither here nor there. I'm just saying that they just leaned really heavily into it. I didn't dislike it or like it because of that. I just found it was an odd choice when they could have gone a little bit more sci-fi with it instead of grounding it in the Muslim religion. That was confusing to me. Why that's what he chose as opposed to just doing something a little bit more sci-fi. Because I got to say that the production design was good, and the costumes look like, aside from the armor is very good. But all of the regular people outside of the warriors was all very Muslim looking, and so again, neither here nor there on that. It's just that's the director chose that area to go down, and it is what it is. I do like that after he drank the thing, which I don't think that part in the 80s at all ever had this drinking of the life thing. But when he does that, I like that he changes, going from Gandalf the Grey to Gandalf the White. That's how it kind of was here. So he had a white cape / headdress for most of the film. And then as soon as he drank the thing, he had this black cape on. I guess showing that he had, progressed. And then when he got the blue eyes, she even says to him, meaning Zendaya's character, Chana or whatever her name is, Chani, says, yeah, you've been, drinking the spice or eating the spice for a long time or exposed to the spice for a long time, so now his eyes are blue. But his mother is still pregnant. So it couldn't have been that long. So it's probably like a long time was probably like 3 months. But that was the way of telling you that, time had passed. Because we really don't get that sense that time had passed. The worm portion of things, especially with him riding for the first time, was definitely better than it was in the 80s. Again, mostly because special effects. And the amount of extras that they either created or actually had, which I think is a little bit of both, was amazing. How many extras they were able to duplicate, because I'm sure that they weren't all there. But they had to have a certain amount of them there. So that was pretty amazing. So it did feel epic. I got to say that. It did feel like 3 hours long, though, also, but I don't know if there was anything they really could have cut, because they already had a problem with the villain, with Fade's character not being developed. So I don't know how much more they could have cut to get it any lower when it was obvious they had already cut and it had problems with those cuts. So, you got to brave through just about 3 hours of it. And it doesn't really slow down. It does keep pace, but you are feeling it, that it does take that. And people are probably going to say, no, man, it felt like 5 minutes to me. All right, well, if it felt like 5 minutes to you, that's great. But for me, it did feel long. But it did feel like we were progressing with the character. The character was developing. The character was making decisions. The character was possibly stepping out of bounds at some points, but did it anyway. And I think he did it for selfless reasons for the most part. There was really nothing in it for him. So, because he basically gives up his hopes and dreams by the end of it. So, it was very interesting. And yeah, there's definitely a lot of talking points if you're going to have, debates about what was going on. But it's definitely a chosen one type of script. It's got some supernatural elements to it, things to that effect. And then, of course, we do have the sci-fi effects. And again, the production design and the CGI and everything else is all very good. So if I was going to rate it, I'm going to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. I'm going to say it's an 8. So it's not the best thing I've ever seen. It's definitely not the best sci-fi I've ever seen. But it is good. It is good. You're not going to be disappointed by it. But I'm definitely not one of the people that drank the Kool-Aid here and thought it was the best thing I ever saw in all my life. That's not what you're going to hear out of me. All right, so let me know your thoughts. Again, I thought the acting was extremely good. And Oscar-winning performances? I don't know. I mean, possibly. Definitely nomination for Timothée Chalamet and even Zendaya. I really liked Zendaya's performance. I thought I thought she was able to convey some stuff wordlessly that was pretty good. All right, so thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Again, give me your thoughts below. Did you love it? Did you love to Blade Runner 2024? I thought I'm just crazy. I have heard that before. But anyway, there was another Bautista movie there because he was in the beginning of that. But anyway, so I never did a review on that one, though, so you can't find any of my review on that. But anyway, check out Lords of LA in the description below with the link. Definitely just at least clicked on that and check it out. The videos on that and stuff like that as well. It's definitely got vampire action. It's a little bit more adult, so there is blood, sex, and fangs. Also, give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you can. I am trying to grow the channel out. And so yeah, if you can click the bell and give me the thumbs up with a middle finger or whatever. Also, we are still chugging right along with the card game with me and Mark Spears, doing our monster card game called Myth Lords, and we are going to be launching that as I just have to get in the samples from China, so I'm working on that diligently. I'm leaving for Gamma in a couple of days, which is a board gaming convention for distributors and retailers and stuff like that. So anyway, check out some other videos that are going to pop up at the end. And again, thank you guys so much for watching. All right, have a good one.